You're good.
Good. Rob, are we on?
You're on.
We're on a new platform, folks. Are we on, Rob?
You're on. You're on.
Okay. Hey, guys. Welcome back to Sports with Mono and Mono. It's the 11th day of March, 2023. Spring is approaching rapidly after a morning snow shower. So thanks for joining us, and let me just give a quick update on my little brother and of course my partner here with our show. He's recovering. I'm going to say that from this time a week ago, a lot of progress is made. We got a long way to go, but the outpouring of love and thoughts that have come through is just amazing to me. It's phenomenal, to be quite honest, and I know he hears it when I tell him it, and um, like I said, he wishes he could be here, but we're still going through we got some challenges to go through, but he's going to be okay. And again, thank you to all of our loyal listeners for their thoughts and prayers. It's just been amazing. Right. So I'll keep you guys posted, of course. And Steve, we're all thinking of you. And people like Miriam and all your friends from Oakland and our St. Joe's brethren and all those people and loyal listeners of the show. Just we're encouraged and continue to support you in your recovery, and things are going to be okay, buddy. I love you. So let's jump right in. Our monologue, of course, is sponsored by Coriano Trucking of Summerhill, New York, and who I actually spoke to yesterday. And again, he sends his prayers and thoughts to Steve as well. And Guy, thank you very much. And a quick shout out because your bride's birthday is Monday, and happy birthday, Lily. Okay. So the monologue this week is I'm going to start off with college basketball because there was a big change, right? Jim Boeheim is no longer the coach of Syracuse, and you know, 47 years is a pretty incredible run. And a lot of people have been critical, myself included, of Jim Boeheim. He's had incredible teams. He's had 23 first round draft picks. He has one national championship. That was in 2003. And, um, you know, 47 years as a coach, and he was a player for Syracuse. So you got to give this guy credit. But, you see the landscape changing, right? There's no longer the Bobby Knights, the Coach K's, and now the Jim Boeheims. But he did have a remarkable run, 47 years. And I just wanted to bring that up because you don't see that. He's going to retire as the second all-time winningest coach. And, the criticism is that he's had many opportunities to win a national championship, couldn't close the door, but he did have the one. And as the old saying goes, you don't go to Syracuse for the weather, right? So he's had an amazing run there. And I wanted to give him some credit because I know, Syracuse basketball fans are very unique. They're very critical, and I think Jim Boeheim represented that school. He bleeds orange. There's no question about it. but it's kind of the changing of the guard kind of thing. So Adrian Autry is going to take over for him, and the new era of Syracuse basketball begins. And we're going to touch base on, college basketball. Of course, it's this weekend. It's Selection Sunday, right? March Madness is upon us. Conference tournaments are wrapping up. Automatic bids are coming. And I'm sad to report that my Niagara Purple Eagles will not be in the big dance this year, having lost last night to Iona in the MAC semifinals. But they had a decent run. It was a 500 year, but they're not making the tournament. But with a lot of college basketball, Patrick Ewing, he got fired from Georgetown. And listen, I don't know. He was groomed as an assistant coach in the NBA, and he returns to his alma mater, and it just didn't work out. I mean, I thought he could bring that back to the John Thompson era because he's a legend at Georgetown. It's just been an absolute train wreck for Georgetown in the past 6 seasons. So he's out. I don't know what kind of, what the replacement is going to be. I don't know who that's going to be, but Georgetown hasn't been on the map in a long time. And unfortunately, it didn't work out for Patrick Ewing. So he's out. And there was one interesting thing I wanted to bring up on this Niagara thing. And you guys know my philosophy and my thoughts on sports betting and whatnot. But before, yesterday, before the game, there was I don't remember exactly where it was, but everything's tied to gambling. And, so they projected the probable score of that Niagara-Iona game as 71-59. And I don't know how this is even remotely possible, but the final score was 71-59. I don't have any answers for it. I don't know how they can get this thing right. I just don't get it. But thought that was an interesting thing, right? So the tournament's going to be there starting, probably, I guess, Thursday and Friday of this coming week. Always a great day for college basketball fans. Some notable missings in that is going to be North Carolina. I mean, it's hard to believe that North Carolina is not going to be in one of the 64 teams, but they're not, so they got some work to do. I don't know. I'm not going to hang, Hubert Davis on this. They're not going to give up on Hubert Davis. He was the successor to take this team forward. But, it's been a tough year for them. But Duke, and I brought up John Shire having the most wins ever by a rookie coach for Duke. But they're not the powerhouse. I mean, the top teams in this tournament are definitely Houston, UCLA, and, today Virginia's playing in the ACC final, I think against Clemson, if I'm not mistaken. But I've always told you I thought Tony Bennett is just a great basketball coach at Virginia, and they got a shot. So, I don't really know. I'm going to say UCLA has a pretty good chance of winning it this year. Houston is good, but I think they can be beat. Purdue has been inconsistent. So it's all up. I would love to hear please send us your comments and thoughts about who's going to win this come up tournament time. But send us an email at sportswithmonoandmono@gmail.com. And as you can see, I'm wearing my Mark Messier jersey in honor of Steve. I had his Roger Staubach jersey on last week. So if you were wondering, number 11, he was the captain. So wearing this for Steve today. And, thank goodness, I happen to have idolized Roger Staubach and Mark Messier myself. So I'm going to run out. If he had a Trevor Bauer jersey, I don't think I would be wearing that, obviously. So let's move right on and enjoy college basketball. But there was a lot of things happening in the NFL this week, and there was a big blockbuster trade, which Rob informed me late yesterday that the Chicago Bears have traded the number one pick in the draft to the Carolina Panthers, right? So, a couple things. What does that really mean? That means they think Justin Fields is the guy to take them forward. So, we know that the quarterback situation in the draft coming up, there's really four guys, right? There's Bryce Young, there's CJ Stroud, there's Will Levis, and out of the combines came Anthony Richardson. Now, I mean, this guy is an absolute specimen, physical specimen, just dominated the combine. Does that translate into, the number one overall pick for the Carolina Panthers to rebuild that franchise after some disastrous seasons with the Sam Darnolds and the Mayfields and all that kind of stuff? That remains to be seen, but that says a lot. I wasn't really sure that Justin Fields was the guy. I'm still not convinced that he's, better than those four guys that are coming out of the draft, but we're going to see because the Chicago Bears apparently think so. So they're stocking up on draft picks, and they get DJ Moore from the Panthers. So we'll see how that pans out. I still think that the number one pick of those four guys is going to be this guy Will Levis from Kentucky. He's a fiery type kid, not overly cocky, but he's got the tools, and not dismissing Bryce Young at all, because I mean he's just been an incredible college football player, Heisman Trophy winner. So it all depends upon the general managers and the team, and think who's that best pick. Will it be a quarterback? I don't know. Will it be Jalen Carter from Georgia? I don't think so. Not with all his potential legal troubles going on, and his being complicit in this tragic car accident of his teammate and so forth. So I don't know that that's the kind of guy that you build a franchise around, and rarely, is a defensive tackle that player. So there's still a lot going on, and we'll see as we come up for the draft. But I wanted to give a shout out to Luke Whippler, who we had on the show a couple of weeks ago. He's rapidly gaining attention. Of all of the offensive linemen, he had an incredible combine, and he just looks completely, just ripped and athletic, and he could still potentially be a number one pick in the draft. And we're rooting for you, Luke. So thank you, and great job at the combines. But we're going to see. So there are other things obviously going on, right? I think we've been pretty consistent in knowing that I think Aaron Rodgers is coming to the Jets. I think they're finalizing the deal. I think there's no chance of him returning to Green Bay. But does that make the New York Jets an instant Super Bowl contender? I'm not seeing it. I mean, he's going, if he's going to come to the AFC, he's got to deal with the Burrows and the Herberts and the Mahomeses. And I don't think the Jets are just Aaron Rodgers away from winning a Super Bowl. So this is going to be an interesting thing to see. I think it was all, more ceremonial having Derek Carr in there. He ultimately signs with the New Orleans Saints, which, good riddance there. I mean, I didn't think he was the franchise quarterback that the Jets were looking for. Aaron Rodgers is 39 years old, but he still seems to think he's got what it takes to lead the Jets, and I'm not really sure. And Miriam, thank you for your comments, and thank you for your support for my brother, and I appreciate it very, very much. You'll never know how much. So, also, this Geno Smith, he cashed in, man, $100 million to stay in Seattle. I don't know that he's the franchise quarterback, but they seem to like what they see in him, and I don't know that they have a plan B, so they're going to stick with him. We're going to see. But how about this? And I've been a big supporter, as you guys know, of Daniel Jones and the job that he's done for the Giants, certainly last year. But, he got an unbelievable contract. He got a $40 million a year deal with the New York Giants. And this is all based upon his relationship with Dable. That means Brian Dable think he's capable of leading the Giants to, some better success than they've had in the past few years. He had a bumpy couple of years. His record is under 500. He has one more touchdown than he does turnovers, but he seems to have matured last year under Brian Dable and got rid of this whole Shermer and McAdoo and all this other nonsense from a head coaching perspective. So good for him. I just think, what is this going to do to the market? Daniel Jones gets $40 million. It's quite possible we're sitting here talking that, we all fell over when we saw the contract that Patrick Mahomes signed. But you know what? Joe Burrow is up next. He's going to get paid, and we could be looking at a $50-55 million a year player. It's not out of the realm of possibility. So we're going to see. We could see a $60 million quarterback. I don't know, but it's going to be interesting to see. So see how that works out. And then there's there's the other guys still roaming around, right? The Lamar Jackson situation. I don't know what's going on. The players are calling it collusion, and I'm just saying to myself, he quit on their team. He basically was probably physically able to play the game, and he didn't show up, and that leaves a bad taste in the mouth. And I can't see him and the Ravens fixing this situation at all. So is his worth more than Daniel Jones? Well, if you look at his success rate, yeah, he's an MVP. But he doesn't have many more playoff victories than Daniel Jones. So I don't know. It's not a guy I would want on my team. I think you're better off starting over, but somebody will pick him up because you still have the other stragglers out there, the Garoppolos and guys like that. But the Mayfields, the Teddy Bridgewaters, these are B players. So we're not gonna sit here and say that the Jets can't be a contender with Aaron Rodgers, but I just don't think they have what it takes. But keep an eye on this Anthony Richardson from Florida. I mean, I've watched him play several times, and he didn't really impress me outside of his physical status. But he's a player, and he's showed up at the combine, so we're going to see. But the quarterback position is always the one position on a football team that you have to build around, and there's 4 good quarterbacks coming out, so we're going to see how that goes. And of course, at the end of the season, now you get these salary cap issues coming up, like Kansas City releases Frank Clark, who was a stalwart defensive player for them for several years, and he gets cut. The Vikings part ways with Adam Thielen, who has had an unbelievable run. He's a Minnesota kid anyway, but these guys, they're all victims of the salary cap. That's why so much emphasis is put on money up front for these guys. So they know it's going to happen at some point, but there's going to be a lot of movement, a lot of different players changing teams because of the salary cap. So we're going to see how that plays out as well. You'll still see some more names coming up and guys getting cut and changing things, but the NFL, it's a 12-month a year business. It just never really settles down, and we have the draft coming up and players trading, changing teams in the NFL. But I think the Jets and the Aaron Rodgers deal is being worked on and finalized. But good luck to the Jets. I don't know. I don't know if Zach Wilson is going to be the answer, but it looks pretty definite that Rodgers is coming to New York, and we'll see about that. So let's move on to the NBA because Mike Garvey always tells me we don't talk a lot about the NBA. But we talked about the Knicks, and it's been a pretty good turnaround for the Knicks, I must say. This guy Randall, after this disastrous public relations season for the Knicks last year, but the Knicks have just ran off 9 straight, and then they follow that up with two losses. one to a Charlotte team, which is, you're not supposed to lose to teams like that. But then they can't beat a team like the Sacramento Kings, who, that's an up and coming team. De'Aaron Fox is really turned into a major league player for them. But the NBA, when you look at it, there's really, I mean, obviously Kevin Durant makes Phoenix an instant favorite in the Western Conference. But everybody keeps overlooking the Denver Nuggets with Jokic. He's possibly could win his third MVP. To me, when you look at who the MVP is, I still think it was Luka Doncic, or even Joel Embiid. I think he's leading the league in scoring, but we'll see about that. But there's really only two teams in the West. I could see it only being Denver and Phoenix. Durant got hurt in warm-ups, but so he'll take another week or two to rest and do whatever these guys do. And then the Eastern Conference, I mean, the Milwaukee Bucks are clear favorites. They won 16 games in a row at one point, and Giannis is, I don't know, he's one of the best players in the league for sure. I mean, like top 2 or 3 players in the league. But there's a couple other teams. Is this starting to pull together in Philadelphia with James Harden? I certainly hope not, but they are in contention here, and the East is wide open. But here's a sleeper team: the Cleveland Cavaliers. That Donovan Mitchell trade, that's really brought that franchise to the level where you have to talk about them. So if they open up the first round of the playoffs against the Knicks, they could beat the Knicks. I just don't know that the Knicks have enough chemistry right now. The Nets have been playing better, and I did catch this. A lot of people are giving, Sean Marks, these guys were praising him, and then he goes out and he gets Irving, he gets Durant and Harden. I think Harden was the one misstep he made in that, but everyone's criticizing him, But this was Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. These were the people that they thought was going to put them on the map, and the chemistry wasn't there. The constant distractions off the court just made it impossible. I don't hang Sean Marks for bringing Durant and Irving there. I just think they just don't have the chemistry, and I like the rebuild, and the Nets are coming back. So. What do you say, Rob?
Well, I'm a Brooklyn Nets fan, and
I do.
listen, Sean Marks had to go for it. When you have
Yes.
Durant and Irving wanting to come to your franchise, you have to go
Yep.
for it. So hopefully he learned his lesson, because don't forget that team was rising before KD and Kyrie.
They were.
So hopefully he realizes that, all right, maybe Mikal Bridges is going to be a superstar. They have an $18.2 million trade exception next year to bring a top player in, and let's build from what we have now. I watched last night the last 5 or 6 minutes and overtime. That's a fun team. Let them build. Let them build to where they are. No more of these super teams. Build from within. Get that one more piece, and let's see what happens.
Well, listen, I'm glad that you chimed in on this, because being a Brooklyn Nets fan, I couldn't agree with you more. I think Sean Marks did what he thought was going to work out, and just didn't work out because of the personalities of those guys. But he put them on the map, and if there was contention there, that wasn't Sean Marks's. Nobody could foresee, the absolute distraction that Irving has, and then Durant demanding trades. I think he made a good decision at the time to bring those guys in, and you know what? He's done pretty good on the trade market, and right, Bridges is playing lights out, and they got a team. They got a good team.
Yep.
I agree. Yep. So Major League Baseball is coming pretty soon. Interesting enough, the Yankees went out and they got their big name pitcher Carlos Rodon, but already, a forearm strain puts him on the IR. So You're not going to have him as your opening day starter. Um, but Major League Baseball is the spring training thing. There is a thing going on, this World Baseball Classic, which I wanted to address, um, because it's pretty good. I mean, I think it's kind of good. I think it's better than these spring training games. So you got marquee guys playing. Not so much for the U.S., but like the Dominican Republic is a very formidable team. There's a lot of good players on that team. I can see them winning the whole thing. A lot of good players on the U.S. side. Excuse me, but not Aaron Judge. Not those kind of Bryce Harper type players. But um, that's going to be an interesting thing. That's worth watching. You saw Shohei Ohtani, is part of that, and this guy is just incredible in his durability and his talent wise. And I don't know if he's going to be wearing an Angels uniform next year. But Major League Baseball starts in, I don't know, probably 2 weeks, 3 weeks tops. But keep an eye out on that World Baseball Classic because I think it's pretty interesting, and we'll see how that goes. So Major League Baseball is on the horizon, but we can't absolutely. And I'm wearing my Mark Messier jersey because the Rangers are an absolute contender for the Stanley Cup. However, they're going to have to get through Boston, and they had a good showdown last week, which Boston took. They're having just an unbelievable season. Will the Patrick Kane trade, pan out for the Rangers? They didn't really give up much, so it was worth it. But we talk about it. This is a long road to win their sports championship trophy, in this case, the Stanley Cup. So we'll keep an eye on it because there's a lot of great young talent. And, Steve and I have always talked about this Connor McDavid. He's having an incredible year, an absolutely incredible year. But when you look at it, I think he's got like 124 points, 20 games left. It just goes to show you when we've talked about the Wayne Gretzky's and the Mario Lemieux, who used to put up 180 points, and Wayne Gretzky scored 92 goals in one season and scored 212 points, which is an almost impossible record to possibly break. It puts it into perspective how great those guys were in their sport. And but Connor McDavid is the new poster child for the NHL. He's a good kid. He's lightning fast, and he's racking up points. So, hopefully for the Edmonton Oilers, that this guy is going to bring them back to the prominence they once had with the Messiers and the Gretzkys and the Grant Fuhrs and those guys. So hockey is coming down to the stretch, right? I think we got maybe even less than 20 games left. But the Rangers are a real deal. And the Devils, the New Jersey Devils, they've been kind of on this downside for a few years, but behind the curtain, they were restacking and bringing in these young kids like Jack Hughes, and they are a team that could give anybody, Boston, the Rangers, anybody trouble in the playoffs. So I can't wait for that to begin. But one other note, the Flyers, what has happened to that franchise? I can't even begin to tell you that, they brought in Tortorella, who I don't know. He's such a hot-headed coach. But the Flyers fired their general manager. I mean, is it the general manager's fault? I guess somebody's got to take the fall. But the Flyers have been a franchise that was once just always up there in contention, had some Stanley Cup victories. But they hired Daniel Briere as the kind of the Chris Drury parallel in the Rangers situation, young rebuilding type player. That's what the Philadelphia Flyers need, and I'm happy to see them struggling. But excuse me, folks. So anyway, like I keep telling you guys, football is over for the year. but hockey is only just beginning. So I want to go on to our random points of interest, right? And our random points of interest is always sponsored by Lynch Toyota of Manchester, Connecticut, and loyal to the bone. Thank you, President Lynch of Lynch Toyota. Appreciate it. So a couple of the random points that I wanted to bring up. I was going to bring this up, the World Baseball Classic, but we talked about that. But that's a fun thing to watch. A couple other things. Interesting. This Quinn Ewers and Archie Manning's grandson, Arch, right, will be competing for the head coach, the starting quarterback job at Texas. Now you had the most coveted recruit in years, and Manning signs on to go to Texas, and Quinn Ewers transfers from Ohio State to Texas, got hurt at the year's end, but this should be interesting. And I actually saw a pretty funny thing. They call it arch rivals now, these two kids. But Texas has been coming back from college football after some down years. And, you see stuff like what's been going on in Tennessee and Jeremy Pruitt's tenure there. And now they're, 5 of his assistants or the remaining guys are being sanctioned for participating in that. You got to do it right in college football. And now it's even more difficult. It's going to be almost impossible to police the illegal payments because this nil stuff is a real thing. But that's going to be an interesting quarterback battle. And, Sam Hartman going to Notre Dame, that should make it interesting as well. I can't wait for college football. I actually enjoy it just as much as high school football and, the NFL with all of the stuff going on and the money that's being thrown around. It's still the NFL, but you know what? I don't set my clock by it anymore because it's just, to me, I think you see a better quality, more, these are kids that are fighting to get into that league, but the passion of college football is awesome. And you're going to see little battles like this going on with guys being able to transfer from here to there at will. Speaking of football, Calvin Ridley, who was suspended last year for gambling, and again, it's the irony of this, that the NFL is in bed with the DraftKings and the FanDuels, but he did bet on his own team, right? He needs to have somebody to say, you can't do that. I don't know that he's a top flight receiver anyway, but I think he's now in Carolina or Nashville or something. But you got to learn. You can't bet on your own. If we get one thing from that slug Pete Rose, is you don't bet on your own team because it has an absolute conflict of interest. But the NFL lets him back in the league. Rob, what are you thinking?
He's in Jacksonville.
Jacksonville. Okay, with Trevor Lawrence. Well, that could be a good fit for him. But his off the field situation, again, it's a distraction. I mean, it becomes more and more prevalent. And, he's going to a good situation with Trevor Lawrence, but, I don't know that he's the top flight receiver. We'll see about that. And, we're going to see about who the top wide receivers are coming out. I mean, I would love for the Giants to get this guy, Quentin Johnston from TCU. I mean, they absolutely positively need a wide receiver, but they also need a linebacker too. So we're going to see how that pans out. Interesting news yesterday, and my loyalty to St. Joe's, but there was a retirement announcement. Longtime only New England Patriot Devin McCourty retired after 13 seasons. He St. Joe's star, went to Rutgers with his brother, stars there, and you know what? Devin McCourty is probably going to the Hall of Fame. That's how good of a player he's been for that franchise. And, to survive Bill Belichick for 13 years. He don't keep you around if you don't produce, and he's been producing. So, Jeremy, thank you very much, my friend. And you know what? Jeremy sent us a comment, and I wanted to send it right back to Jeremy because Jeremy's mom sent us some comments on the show not too long ago, and she's not doing well, physically. But Jeremy, just as you've been reaching out to us, about your concern for Steve, we send our thoughts and prayers to your mom, Elizabeth Bennett, and I hope, like I said, I know it's a very tough situation, but we're not just about sports on this show. We're about community and loyalty to one another. And when your mother was sending us comments, we absolutely adored it, and we wish her all the best. Thank you very much, kid. Um, Another random point of interest, Michaela Sheffrin, and we brought her up not too long ago, but she did win her 87th Alpine ski title, and that is all time, women's or men's, in her sport. So you could tag her with the Wayne Gretzky, or of her sport, breaking Ingemar Stenmark. And you know what? I can remember vividly back in the Olympics in 1976, Ingemar Stenmark was just, he was he was the Gretzky of sports, of his alpine skiing sport at the time. And, here we are some 50 plus years later, almost 50 years, and Kayla Schifrin breaks his record. So that's notable. Congratulations to her. Just certainly wanted to mention that because you know what? People don't watch it a lot, but when you see somebody dominate the sport like she has for the past 10 years, it's certainly notable. And I wanted to bring that up. So I also wanted to bring up, of course, my grandson. He's been playing some basketball this year, but he's very, very excited about the upcoming baseball season because the Little League starts right around the corner as well. So I wanted to give my grandson Logan a two thumbs up. I'm just so proud of him, and he's really taken to the sports like Steve and I did when we were his age, and it's just been amazing to watch. And now he's a big brother to his little brother Hudson, and his little sister. He's such a good kid, and I'm not being biased here. Yeah, maybe I am a little biased, but I just wanted to bring that up. Also, so we had talked about, Steve and I's our loyalty to St. Joe's and the talent that's come out there. I just wanted to give a shout out to Jimmy Mullen, who is um, he's going to Virginia Tech, but he was an unbelievable football player. But he's also a dominant wrestler, and he became only the third heavyweight in New Jersey history to win 3 state championships at the heavyweight division. That's saying something, man. This kid's an athlete. I mean, unbelievable. But he did win his third championship. The state finals are always down in Atlantic City, so the St. Joe's wrestling team was number one in the state. Just the talent that comes through there. But I wanted to give a shout out to Jimmy, and that's a tough task. To especially in the heavyweight division. I think the only other 3-time state champion at St. Joe's was Damian Logan years ago. But wrestling, I've always said it was, you got to be that. That's one tough sport, and I never did it. But congratulations to him and the St. Joe's team because that's saying something. A lot of great talent that they brought up. But Jimmy Mullen, he's going to Virginia Tech, so he's going to probably be a two-sport wrestling and football guy, and that's awesome to see. And we're going to continue to follow him from the state of New Jersey. So, folks, we're also going to move on to our notable passings, and Steve and I have always brought up not just sports players, but prominent people in entertainment. And one fella, it caught me caught my attention big time was Gary Rossington, the last surviving member of Leonard Skinner. And Leonard Skinner was one of my all-time favorite groups, and I had gotten a chance to see Gary Rossington play. After the plane crash in 1977, he formed the Rossington Collins Band with all the surviving members of Leonard Skinner, except Ronnie Van Zant and Steve Gaines and Cassie Gaines, the backup singer. So I saw them front row at the Garden State Arts Center back in, like, I don't know, had to be 1979 or something. And their marquee song, which everybody knows, was Free Bird, and they played it obviously without Ronnie Van Zant singing. And this guy was just an amazing guitar player. And I saw him when they reformed Leonard Skinner, I guess. Obviously not the original band. So I wanted to give a shout out. He was 71. He's had some health issues, but from a rock and roll perspective, he kind of flew under the radar, but well respected nonetheless. And that was a big loss personally, because that was my guy. I mean, I saw him play many times. Big loss in the music business. And another from the world of entertainment was Robert Blake. A kind of a strange character, beats a murder rap, and he was 89 years old, obviously famous for this TV show Beretta, which I used to watch. Steve and I watched it, and but he 89. I actually always see him on old Johnny Carson reruns, and he's pretty funny. I don't know what kind of a person he was off the off screen and so forth, and I thought for sure he was going to go down for that murder charge, but he beat it. But he was also he was a prominent actor in Hollywood. And from the world of sports, and unfortunately, we're starting to see these guys when Steve and I were growing up and young guys. Otis Taylor, former wide receiver for the Kansas City Chiefs, and Otis is the third all-time leading receiver in Chiefs history. I think he's behind Tony Gonzalez and obviously Travis Kelce. But Otis Taylor, was a great football player on that Hank Stram team. He was on the first Super Bowl team that they lost to the Packers, but he was also on the fourth Super Bowl when they won, beat the Minnesota Vikings, and Otis Taylor had a long touchdown run, a long touchdown pass from Lenny Dawson, who we talked about probably 6 months ago, had just passed away as well. But Otis Taylor was, absolutely a great football player in his day, and I certainly remember him. And I always bring it up because Steve and I always brought up the old Sunoco book. It was when you got gas and they gave you, little stamps, and you had a whole book of NFL players, and we were religious on that. And Otis Taylor was one of the Kansas City Chiefs that was in that book, and that just goes to show. I wish we had that book. I think it would be worth a lot of money today. I don't know what happened to it, but rest in peace, Otis Taylor. So, folks, again, all your support has just been amazing, and I really do thank you from the bottom of my heart. And Steve is going to be back with us at some point, and take a little bit of time. But the support you've shown, and I've gotten more emails at sportswithmono@gmail.com than I could ever have imagined. And it really is something special, and I can't thank you enough. So what I'm going to try to do, to kind of fill, I think we're going to, Rob and I are going to work it out. But, we've had so many loyal listeners that have started to follow the show. I think we're going to start bringing in and having just a little segment for our loyal listeners, just to introduce themselves to the rest of our audience, and I think it'll be good. I'm looking forward to it. I'm going to still work on some other guests and so forth here and there, but Steve's chair can never be filled adequately or to any measurable point. But I want to thank you guys personally, and I'm going to have you guys on the show, and we'll bring somebody on each week and give them a chance to say what's good, what's not so good about sports with Mono and Mono. And again, we're always open to that, criticism or not. And if you think we can improve the show and we don't talk enough about pickleball, let us know. And I can't see me talking about pickleball, though. I got to be honest with you. I don't get it. I don't get the phenomenon. But anyway. But Rob, we'll work this out together. And as always, I thank you. I think we're on a new platform, so I don't know if our introduction theme song came on today, but we'll work out those kinks. But Rob's been a good producer for us, and Rob, thanks for pulling this one off. And we'll be back here same time next week. And again, send us comments on Facebook or leave us comments on YouTube or SoundCloud. And as always, send us an email at sportswithmonoandmono@gmail.com. So thanks for joining us this week. And again, thanks for all your prayers for Steve. And we'll see you guys next week. Thanks, Rob.